Hey everyone, it's Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm joined by Alan Saunders today. We're going to talk about what we think about the Steelers' 53-man roster cut downs, who they think they'll keep today. Also, we'll talk about whether or not you should buy or sell in the Steelers' designs that haven't been shown yet, being a boost for the team. Also, any trade targets the Steelers should look at. But now that the roster cut downs are happening, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit FanDuel app today and start planning out your future bets now. As number 4, joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. He's back from SteelersNow.com. Alan, we are less than 2 weeks away from football that actually matters. Next Thursday is the official kickoff. But today, as in Tuesday, is the official roster cut down day. We'll be giving our projections there. It's just you and I were talking about this when we were walking off the practice field. I think actually walking onto the practice field. It's like, we're ready to get to some real football.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very sick of off-season storylines at this point, but we got a week to go. So, yeah, that's that.
Absolutely. So one thing that you and I have talked about on both sides of the ball is how much of what the Steelers, schematics and concepts that we should expect to see this year have actually been shown to us, whether in training camp, preseason, practices, etc. We talked about this with the run game. I played a clip from Arthur Smith last week after he talked to us about how he admitted himself. He's like, hey, we want to pull with these guys. We're not pulling right now. You're not seeing us do that in games because we're trying to work different things out. But we don't want to show all the meat that's on our bone right now. And I think that, you and I talked about how there's a certain expectation or faith that the Steelers are having in their run game developing there. Similarly, you can kind of say the same for the defense. And we finally got a chance to talk to Alex Highsmith for the first time in a while. Mike Tomlin confirming that he is on his way back to playing. Alex Highsmith also said that he expects absolutely to play 1,000% on week 1. So that's good news. But listen to Alex Highsmith. First, he gives a good tidbit on the defensive line, but I want you guys to hear what he says about when I ask him about the whole him and TJ Watt moving around thing and the things that this defense hasn't shown yet. Here was Alex Highsmith after the Steelers practice on Monday.
Alex, you guys got a lot of young guys in the middle right now as far as D-tackle. What have they brought to the table that have maybe helped you guys do a few different things in this early part of the season?
Yeah, I think bringing in Derek and Wyatt this year's draft was awesome for us. Both those guys played great, made a lot of plays during the offseason. So definitely hoping that Derek can get back as soon as possible. And so I think those guys bring a lot of versatility to our defense. They make plays, they're mature for their age, and so they've been learning to get better every day.
What about them that makes them mature for their age? Because I was going to ask you next.
I think they just put their head down and work. They don't say too much. They just come to work every single day. And they're open to learning. They're open to getting better. And so it's been cool just getting to know those guys and building a relationship with them and watching them grow on the field.
Alex, you guys talked a lot about maybe moving some things around as far as your pass rush plans. What have you guys been able to kind of figure out heading into the regular season, despite you were out for a bit, and you guys wanted to rest a lot of your ones for these preseason games?
Yeah, I think we've done a good job in practice, just working different things, switching sides some, and some guys rushing, interior that rushing the edge, and some guys that are rushing the interior, rushing the edge too in some plays. And so I think we've done a good job of mixing it up, and so I'm excited to see what we bring for the first few weeks of the season and building off of that.
Is there an extra excitement for the stuff that you guys didn't show and haven't shown before, that you guys are like, hey, we know we have this in our bag that we can show, we're ready to show in the regular season?
1,000%. I think it's always like that. There's always something new that we're going to bring to the table. But I think we got some stuff that we haven't run yet that I'm excited about. So looking forward to showing it.
So there's Alex Highsmith talking about he's excited to show some things here. Alan, I do think the Steelers have experimented a little bit, like Y.A. Black telling us on Saturday that he's never lined up outside the tackle since his freshman year of college. They had him rushing out there when he got his second sack. But I do think you're going to see a bit more this year with what the Steelers want to do. But a lot of it still has to depend on them getting done the basics. If this team does not stuff the run, if this team does not handle the basic things, it won't matter what machinations they throw out there, what extra things they have dialed up, because they won't be able to even get to it.
Yeah, I don't really think the idea of this defense is based on fooling people. They can fool them, and they will try to fool them, but like you look at the talent level of this defense, and the concept is they should be able to roll the ball out there and win by doing just what they look like they're going to do. And I think that's what Mike Tomlin is trying to get to with this defense, where like, if they want to fool somebody, do something different, throw a change up, to use a baseball reference, it's good to have it in the bag. They also want to line up and say, we're rushing 5 and playing man behind, stop us, and be able to win that way more often than not. And when you look at the personnel they have, I don't, gosh, they ought to be able to, right? Like, where's the weakness exactly that would make you think they won't be able to do that? So I don't know if we should believe them or not believe them about, oh, we've got this play in the bag or this stuff that we haven't shown you or yada yada. But like, to me, that's just like a cherry on top. Like the defense will become great or not become great based on its ability to properly execute what it looks like it's going to do. And then we'll see.
I agree with that. And again, that's the foundation where I think everything starts. They need to be able to win up front against the run. Teams can't be just able to run on them a lot. And listen, there will be at some point somebody does run on the defense. It happens to everybody. It happens to the 70 Steelers at times, but the thing is that I think that where you're going to see this come into play, especially for what I think it might matter most this season, is when they're going up against a formidable opponent in the matchup that they're in. Like, for example, their corners are up against, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And I think it's in those types of matchups where it'll be interesting to see, what do the Steelers try to switch up in that situation? Or do they say, hey, you know what? Come and beat us? Because I think that's where, like, when I think back to like Peyton Manning would do a lot of the same things in the playoffs that he did in the regular season, and teams would eventually tee off on them. And you couldn't always stop it, but you could get a better sense of where he was trying to go. Now, defense is a bit different, but still, I think that's where this team could find a bit of a reprieve later in the season as they get through, is that they don't have to. I felt like the past few years, you've seen them kind of empty out the barrel a little bit early because they didn't have the coverage guys early in the season. So you know what? We're faking man coverage a lot more early on. We're showing you all these disguises. And after about 6 weeks of doing those disguises, teams are kind of like, we're picking up on this. And there's not some other magic scheme that you can do. It's just, do you want to actually try to run man with these guys that can't really run with those guys? Or do you want to keep trying to go with these schemes and hope you catch these guys sleeping? I think that's the thing the Steelers might have on their side this year, is they don't have to pull out those tricks until later in the year if they come out and they're winning those matchups like we're talking about.
They can also, and I think that's a really good point, also, the schedule gets much more difficult in the second half of this season. They ought to be able to ease into the season without needing some of those things. I mean, look at the early schedule here. I mean, look at the Jets, the Seahawks, the Patriots, the Vikings, who are like clawing the waiver wire for a wide receiver and playing a quarterback with 0 NFL starts. Like, this defense should be able to smother those teams. And then when you get to the end of the year and you've got to deal with Burrow and Mahomes and Jackson and those, I mean, Mahomes is on schedule, but like those types of, maybe in the playoffs, then you can add to it. But like you said, like, if the Steelers need to be ready with all their tricks and tools in the tool bag to beat the New York Jets in week 1, that's already a problem. Like, they ought to be able to just go line up and beat the Jets.
just go up and line up and beat them straight up. I hear you there. But again, that's why they amassed this.
I think Patrick Queen, like first play, should just yell it out loud. Just be like, cover blitzing. One man, and I'm blitzing.
And say, come on, Justin, do what you want to do against us.
Cover one man, and I got a spy on the quarterback. Let's go.
Listen, there were times the Steelers defenses of the late 2000s would do that. Like I'll never forget the clip of James Harrison yelling at Matt Castle across the Patriots offensive line and saying, 16, I'm coming to get you, and he can't stop me. And then he went back and sacked him. And I'm just like, ugh. Like if this defense is that good, imagine how good they'll be.
Okay, but like we're being a little unserious, but which one-on-one matchup? Steelers playing cover one, man under, Patrick Queen spying Justin Fields. Which matchup there are you worried about if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? Exactly.
If Garrett Wilson gets loose, maybe if he has a good day, but if that's Jalen Ramsey's matchup, yeah, good luck.
Okay. Yeah. And what? That means like Porter's on Lazard?
Exactly.
Come on.
I'm right with you. I'm right with you. But again, that's why I kind of wanted to lead with this because I thought this would be an interesting talking point there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about the trade market because another wide receiver went on the market as Terry McLaurin came off of it, even though we kind of knew he was never really on it, which is what we've been saying on this show for months. But we're going to do that in a second here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. August 26th, officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. And that is today, y'all, for the next 24 hours. These 24 hours throughout August 26th. FanDuel is giving you the deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champs before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. One key future bet is always who's going to win MVP. Right now, Lamar Jackson is the favorite at plus 430, and that's a pretty good bet, but I'm really intrigued by Jaden Daniels being plus 1,000 right now, and that's the 5th best odds of all players. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now because Futures Day is only one day and one day only, and that's today. Get on it. FanDuel, play your game. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Before we continue the show, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners to make our favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't. Answer the questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Check that out. Thanks for helping us out. All right, Alan, let's talk back real quick to the potential for the potential for a Steelers trade here. Now, Jakobi Meyers is a name now that's been put out there. He supposedly has requested a trade from the Raiders. That's going to be interesting to follow here. But is it along the? I think this one might be less along the lines of the Terry McLaurins of the world, because you and I both said Terry McLaurin was never going to happen. But I do think that when I look at this, I think, hey, there's a possibility there. And maybe if the Raiders feel like trading because their backup quarter situation is rough with Aiden O'Connell, maybe they say, hey, let's take Skylar Thompson off your hands. Here's Jakobi Meyers, and maybe we'll take like a low round draft pick. Do you see something like that in the cards, or do you think that Omar Khan sits here and likes where the Steelers offense is to not make one of these wide receiver 2 moves?
I don't think Omar Khan likes where he is. I don't think he'd be bringing Gabe Davis in for repeated free agent visits if he liked where he was. That, to me, is a giant flashing sign that the Steelers are interested in the wide receiver market, in addition to everything we've heard this offseason about the Steelers being involved in the wide receiver market. Jakobi Meyers would be a very attractive option. He's 28, will be 29 this year, had 1,000 yards for the Raiders in not a pretty offense last year. After the Devontae Adams trade, he was really the only receiver they had that was much of a threat besides Brock Bowers, and he looked pretty good doing it. I don't understand how if you're a player who wants a contract extension, you're waiting until August 25th to request a trade. How do you think this works exactly? Like how the Raiders now are in a position where, unless, like you're saying, there's something else out there that they need so badly that they think they can recoup the loss of Jakobi Meyers by adding a backup quarterback and, I don't know, maybe some draft capital. I don't know. But, like, this really puts the Raiders, like, trading Jakobi Meyers would decimate the Raiders' offense this year. I don't know how they get around that. I really don't. And so I think they'll be very hesitant to trade him. I'm mystified by the date of this becoming knowledge, but I think he is exactly what the Steelers should be trying to get in terms of wide receiver 2. Probably wouldn't cost that much to acquire. He's only owed $10 million in salary. It's all great, except for the fact that I don't know how the Raiders get to a point where they're ready to trade him.
And this has been my thing with a lot of these potential deals. Well, even going back to the Brandon Ayuk deal, sure, the Steelers could want to get Brandon Ayuk or want to get Terry McLaurin or want to get this guy or that guy. But do these teams want to give those players up? And that's not all. And it's usually the answer is no in those situations. Maybe Jakobi Meyers is a different spot there. But I think this is a situation where they're going to look around. They're going to see who becomes available, who, is low on someone's depth chart that they feel like they could move on from. And you're kind of right. Jakobi Meyers is high enough on the depth chart where it's like the Raiders need him at wide receiver. Whereas, like, if you're looking at somewhere else, like, theoretically a Romeo Doubs, is lower down in the Packers depth chart where, like, hey, maybe that could work for the Steelers if they thought he could fit in with what they want as a number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, or like Kendrick Bourne. I don't know. Like, there's other guys out there. I don't know that. The Packers have so many injuries. I don't know if they can afford to make a trade right now. That might be the one that has to wait until they get some guys healthy. I don't think, you asked about Omar Khan in the wide receiver market. Obviously, they're interested. I also don't think they're desperate. Like, I think they understand what they have in Metcalf. I think they like Austin. They like Roman Wilson. And they don't need just anybody. They do need somebody that, like, a very specific thing, like some help on the outside, someone else that can run some deep routes to take some pressure off Metcalf and open up some space underneath for those other guys. I think that's I don't get the sense that Omar is just sitting there like begging for a receiver. This would be a really good option, and I think he'll pursue it, although I'm not sure, like I said, that the Raiders will reciprocate. But I'm not sitting here thinking like he's feeling like he has to make a move. If the right one's out there, he definitely will, and they are looking. But it wouldn't totally shock me if one isn't made before the deadline, or even sometimes those moves come in the days and weeks after. That wouldn't totally shock me if they don't make one either.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the position where I'm just leaning on the probably not going to make such a move. So I think that's interesting. I also think it's interesting when you look at the Steelers and how they've handled this in the past. They've been very patient despite all these moves. They haven't made I feel like that Omar Khan has been very, very careful to not overplay to make something happen, and maybe time will still tell on the Jalen Ramsey trade, giving up Minkah Fitzpatrick for him. But I feel like there's a lot of things that they've done, a lot of people that they've moved around, and you haven't felt like they've sold any farms yet. And despite all the talk of them, quote unquote, going all in, even though we know that they're not going actually all in this season, but I look at that. I look at how they've handled it, and I'm kind of leaning with you. I don't think they actually make a move unless there's something just laying out there that's like, that's attainable, won't cost us any draft picks that mess with our plans to get a quarterback next year, and doesn't cost any like future projections of guys that we have plans for moving forward.
Yeah, and we'll see who gets cut too. I mean, there could be a move that they don't have to pay anything to make. Find somebody they like with some potential that gets released somewhere else, and maybe that's how they go about addressing it.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk 53-man roster projections. And in fact, we got a big update literally while we were recording this. So we will talk about what that update was, as well as give you our outlook on the rest of the roster next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you this show is also brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined a league yet, now is the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing Yahoo Fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league, or with the season around the corner, now's the time to get in a league together and give this mode a try. If you don't have a crew, no problem. You can join a public league. It's the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, before we get to the offense and the defense, the punter battle has been decided. Reportedly, Corliss Waitman is sticking with the team. It is Cameron Johnston who's being cut here, or planned to be cut here. As of right now, he has not been cut. There's plans. This might be the carrot that the Steelers can dangle out for a trade. Knowing Omar Khan, he will wait exactly until I finish recording, and then he will trade him. But looking at this result, just looking at the numbers throughout this preseason, Waitman did average punting significantly further than Cameron Johnston. He averaged 53.2 yards per punt. For Cameron Johnston, 42.3, almost a full 10 yards difference there. The longest that Waitman had was a 64-yard punt. Did bounce a bit, but Cameron Johnston's longest was 52. Are you surprised by this move, Alan? I kind of am. I'm not like overly shocked or anything, but I did think because more money was in Johnston that he would be their guy.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised just because I felt like Cameron Johnston was looking more like his old self, and I just felt like that was all he was going to have to do. I didn't really think it was going to be an even competition. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought if Cameron Johnston just looked good enough that he would keep his job. They'll have a $2 million dead cap hit spread out over the next 2 years. It does save them a little bit of money this year, about $1 million, costs them about $1 million next year, ends up being about a wash for the cap. So like that's not really the impetus here. They have plenty of cap space anyway. Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I am. And I think, the one area that I'll say that in the past, Corliss Waitman's been around. It's not like he was some rookie last year. He was a rookie with the Steelers in 2020, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And, the knock on him then, he had a big leg, obviously, was he didn't hold that well.
Yeah.
And he's really gotten a lot better. It was over the course of last season where I didn't think his holding was an issue at all. And that to me is how he had to prove that he could do this at this level. I thought he did that. I just still thought the Steelers would go with Cam Johnston.
Yeah, same here. I thought that he would, but the one thing I was saying is like I noticed Waitman is punting the ball further, and if that's the key thing they want, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But a big win for Corliss Waitman, sticking aka Core Mill, if you know who he is in his other professional career. But that's for another day. All right, let's get through some roster projections. I'm going to speed through some of these. I'm going to give you my picks, and I want you to let me know if you think I'm crazy or if I'm missing something here, or if you think I'm on point here. Let's start at quarterbacks. I'm going Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph. I'm keeping Skylar Thompson, putting Will Howard on injured reserve. Am I crazy for thinking that's what the Steelers might do?
Well, you're crazy. I mean, we should just lay that out here for the audience. They should know this about you by now.
Okay.
If they don't, shame on them. But like, we're going to make sure that they know now. You are crazy. Crazy for this? I don't think it's crazy. I actually think Will Howard's pretty close to being healthy. So I don't like, here's the thing. The plan is for Will Howard to not play anyway. So it doesn't really matter whether they put him on the IR for a few weeks or, leave Skylar Thompson on the roster. But they're committed to Howard long-term. And, I don't see – to me, the IR return slots are going to be more useful elsewhere probably. So that's why I'm leaning on just putting Howard on the 53 and either trying to trade Thompson or putting him on the practice squad.
Okay, there's a thought there. Let's look at the running back room. I'm going Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell. I think the top practice squad guy could be Trey Sermon. Maybe he makes the roster as a special teamer, but I'm keeping him off for now of my 53.
I think Trey Sermon is probably in like the top 2 or 3 guys that I don't think are going to make the Steelers that I think are good enough to make somebody else's 53-man roster.
Right.
Like, I don't think that they're going to keep 4 running backs. I think he is an NFL running back, and like if I'm Omar Khan, I'm kind of looking around at like who's going to get cut, that's going to get poached. That feels like one to me that could be up there.
I know a lot of people love some Lou Nichols, but I'm
trying to get Lou Nichols to the practice squad 100%. I'm just saying, like I think Trey Sermon might not make it there if he's cut.
If he doesn't make it there, Lou Nichols will be right in place to do that. Next up is wide receivers. We got our obvious ones, of course, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. And I'll honestly say Scotty Miller is an obvious wide receiver keep right now. He wasn't at the start of camp. He proved that all throughout. And then I still think Spence Skoranek is one that they're keeping here. They're keeping 5. And honestly, Alan, I think they just keep these 5. They're going to be loading up in other positions like tight end. I think that they're going to be fine keeping these 5 and then practice squatting like a guy like Keyshawn Williams or Lance McCutcheon. Brandon Johnson had that unfortunate injury in the 3rd preseason game. I've liked Max Hurlman, but I think that he hasn't done enough to show that he could be there. I just think they just cut Robert Woods because he hasn't really shown me a whole lot.
Yeah, I agree with these 5. Brandon Johnson's injury to me really seals it that those are the 5. I thought he had a shot to maybe pass Robert Woods. I think he did pass Robert Woods, but you're not going to get onto the roster hurt. Maybe he ends up on the IR. That's another potential. You could put him on the IR return kind of deal. I really like what they have in Keyshawn Williams and Max Hurlman. I'd be definitely trying to get those guys on the practice squad, but yeah, I think this is it for the 53. The real curious thing would be if they do make a move, does that mean it's 6 or does that mean one of those 5 has to go? Because I think that's a pretty tough cut if you're cutting one of those first 5.
I agree that it would be a tough cut there. Let's go to tight end. I think this one's rather easy. They're keeping 4. Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward. I know some people out there are like, why Connor Hayward? I'm telling you, man, they use this guy a lot in different ways, and I think Aaron Rodgers is really excited to use him in the passing game.
Yeah, he's making the team. I don't know. Stop. You guys are ridiculous with that one.
All right.
He's a really good special teamer, too.
Offensive line, let's get the obvious ones out of the way from left to right. We'll go Broderick Jones at left tackle, Isaac Seumalo at left guard, Zach Frazier at center, Mason McCormick at right guard, and then Troy Fautano at right tackle. Those are the easy ones. Next up, I think you got to go Spencer Anderson as the guy who's been filling in for Isaac Seumalo. He's earned his spot there. Next up, I'm going for a 7th offensive lineman, Andres Pete, the guy that they brought in the middle of training camp. He played at left tackle and left guard throughout the preseason. That flexibility is something that Mike Tomlin's going to love. They're going to want to keep him for that. I'm also going to keep Ryan McCullum as their backup center. So that's now 8 offensive linemen. And this is where I start to wonder, where do they go from here? Do they keep a Calvin Anderson who's worked his way back from injury, or do they keep a Dylan Cook? Because I do think you need because with the guys that we've picked so far, as far as guys that I've picked, Spencer Anderson, guard, Andres Pete, guard / tackle, could flex between, Ryan McCullum, guard / center. If you're looking at that, you got 3 interior linemen here, one guy that's half a tackle. That's why I'm going tackle here, and I'm actually gonna take the more experienced guy, Calvin Anderson, even though he was hurt for a bit throughout camp. I know Dylan Cook had some good practices, but I'm going to take Anderson on experience. Am I crazy here with how I've set up the Steelers to keep 9 offensive linemen?
Yeah, I agree with 9 offensive linemen. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the makeup. And Calvin Anderson, to me, 2-year deal. Those guys make the team almost 100% of the time. I feel like he's in, but he has been banged up, and and I don't know if he's ready to go for week 1. And I thought Andrews Pete looked pretty rough at tackle. I thought he looked fine at guard, but the game at tackle was not pretty. And I noticed that he didn't go back there after that. That tells me they're not real happy with the idea of him playing tackle. I agree that I think Spencer Anderson is the number 1 backup. Ryan McCollum is the only other center. Those 2 guys have to be on the roster. I think Calvin Anderson's on the roster. And then to me, it's really, is it Andrews Pete or is it Dylan Cook for the 9th spot? And to me, it really just, if Calvin Anderson is healthy enough to go week 1, I think you can take the flexibility of Pete. If he's not, you need Dylan Cook to be the backup tackle in week 1. And you try to keep Pete around, I guess, and see what you can do.
Okay, I hear you there. So I got my 9 offensive linemen there. Let's go to defensive line. Of course, we take the obvious ones out. Cam Hayward, Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton. I'll also throw in Y.A. Black as an obvious one as your 4th defensive lineman, and Dan Aquale as your 5th. So with those 5 in mind, your other options here are Isaiah Loudermilk, Logan Lee, Sezi Otamawo, Dominique Davis, and Kyler Baugh. I'm actually going to throw in Logan Lee in here because I think they like the young guy as far as where they have him, and that gives me now, I believe, 6 defensive linemen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's my 6th defensive lineman. This is where I struggle because I feel like they would want to keep Isaiah Loudermilk because of his experience and his size as a 7th defensive tackle. So I'm going to keep him on my roster, but he is a person that would be on the short list of the fringe if I need to overload another position for extra guys. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to get, obviously the top 6 are easy. Harmon, Hayward, Benton, Aquale, Loudermilk, Black. I think with Harmon missing week 1, Logan Lee is a lock. I don't know that I want to go any farther than that with this defensive line. I think you can probably put a guy like Asezi Otomowo on the practice squad and bring him up for a week if you need to use him as depth and go from there. I think this is pretty cut and dry at this point because of the injury. I'm not sure that Logan Lee was going to make the team before the injury, but now he almost has to.
I hear you there. Let's go to inside linebacker, where we actually got an update just a few moments ago while we were recording this. Mark Robinson has been released by the team, so that takes him off the table here, and I think that opens up a door for Carson Bruner. So if we're going to inside linebacker, got Patrick Queen as one of your obvious ones. Peyton Wilson is another obvious one. Cole Holcomb is an obvious one. I think you keep a Malik Harrison as your 4th guy, but I was looking at the 5th guy because Danny Smith wants his special teamers, and you often you keep one here. Mark Robinson had been that special teamer. Carson Bruner, I think, now is that special teamer with Mark Robinson being cut. Is that the way that you see it with that news, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were going to keep 5 there all the time. I guess you could make an argument with Nick Herbig banged up that maybe they need the 5th outside linebacker more than they need the 5th inside linebacker, but I think they want that guy for special teams. Very surprised that Mark Robinson is cut. I would have thought that he could be on this team, but a veteran guy and been around a lot, and they must really like Carson Bruner. He made a lot of plays on special teams. There's no question about that.
Outside linebacker, pretty easy. TJ Watt, of course, Alex Highsmith, of course, Nick Herbig, of course, and Jack Sawyer, who I think legitimately put himself in that conversation. Now, also part of these cuts was Julius Welshoff, an outside linebacker, so you could take him out of consideration in the linebacker positions. DeMarvin Leal, a guy that's on his 4th year of his rookie deal, had kind of been playing there, and he'd kind of been featured there a lot. I like some of the things he showed in the 3rd preseason game, but I don't think he did enough to make the roster.
Again, pending Nick Herbig's health, I mean, I think you want to go into week 1 with
4 healthy guys.
4 healthy guys. And if Nick Herbig is not, and he said after practice on Monday that he's unsure as to whether he's going to be ready for week 1, then maybe you find a way to get Leal in there. But I also think if you're talking about a guy who could be traded or a guy that could be of value to another team, there's nobody higher on that list for me than DeMarvin Leal, a guy who was a third-round pick, who was actually talked about as a potentially a first-round pick, who's always been a weird fit for this defense. I don't feel like the Steelers have ever really unlocked his talent. He's had some injuries. There's lots of reasons, if you're another NFL general manager, you can sort of excuse away his lack of production over 3 seasons with the Steelers and think, yeah, we could really use that guy. I think if there's a player most likely to be on a different NFL 53-man roster, it's DeMarvin Leal.
That's very possible as well. Let's move to corner, get the obvious ones out of the way. Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter Jr., and then Darius Slay. They're off of it there. Brandon Echols, I think has definitely earned a spot here. But then this is where it gets interesting after the top 4. I think they do keep 6. I don't think they keep Beanie Bishop because they basically have 2 slot guys in Ramsey and Echols already, and also they'll flex Chuck Clark or Juan Thornhill there when they want to. So I think their 5th and 6th cornerbacks, and I do think they keep 6, are Corey Trice, who says he's coming back, he's getting close to being back to being healthy, and James Pierre because he's just one of their special teams guys, and he's been there. He's been there forever. Would you switch anyone out from those 6 that I named, Alan?
I think this is a really difficult decision between really Trice and Beanie Bishop. I mean, I think James Pierre's on the team. He's the starting punt gunner. And none of these guys are really going to play. Like, it's pretty clear that Ramsey's the starting slot. He's also the top backup outside. Echols is the top backup inside and outside. Like, 3 guys are going to have to get hurt for anyone else to play a meaningful role on this defense. So special teams then just becomes so much more important to the conversation. I think Pierre's definitely in. I have no idea what to do with Trice and Beanie. Either of them could end up, and Dante Kent for that matter too. Any of those guys could end up on the injured reserve, IR return, get cut, get traded. None of that would really surprise me. I think one of them will probably be on the 53, but it's not necessarily a lock either. They almost always keep 10 DBs, but like it's hard to see how the 10th one gets much playing time.
I agree. This team's going to be using those guys up top. Let's finish out real quick. Safety position, I think this is pretty easy. At safety, of course, you're keeping Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, Chuck Clark, and Miles Killebrew as your special teamer. I know a lot of people love Sebastian Castro. That guy's probably going to be on the practice squad. I think he's done a solid job, but he's a box safety, and you're not getting rid of one of those 4 guys for him in that situation.
Yep, those are the 4, man. I think that's been pretty clear since the day they signed Chuck Clark.
And with special teams, we pretty much we know who it is. It's Chris Boswell, Christian Kuntz, who is going to be healthy, presumably for week 1. And then now Corliss Waitman is the punter that you're keeping, which we now know because the Steelers have now let go of Cameron Johnston. So there you have it. There's my 53-man roster there. Let me know if you think that I'm crazy out there, even though I may just be crazy, but let me know if you think this list is crazy. Alan, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Saunders_PGH on social media. SteelersNow.com is where you can find my written work and my podcast. Steelers Morning Rush and Steelers Afternoon Drive can be found on the Steelers Now YouTube page or anywhere you find podcasts.
Absolutely. He's Alan Saunders. Thanks, Alan, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social media handles. Also, the same handle everywhere. It's at Carter Critiques. Read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com, including my most recent YA Black film study, which you can check out there in the Steelers tab. You can also check out this show every day, Monday through Friday, the Locked On Steelers podcast on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those Monday through Friday episodes back here tomorrow after those roster cuts to get another look at what the Steelers will look like moving forward. We'll see you here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.